Okay, so when you hear the name King Solomon, what comes to mind? Probably wisdom, right? Immense wealth? But there's another part of his story, a detail so massive it almost sounds like a legend.
1,000 women. Yeah, you heard that right. To be specific, we're talking about 700 wives, actual royal princesses, and 300 concubines. It's a number that's just, well, it's hard to even wrap your head around.
And get this, this wasn't just some abstract number in a history book. This was his actual household. 1,000 women from dozens of different nations, all speaking different languages, worshiping different gods, all crammed together in one palace complex. I mean, it's less of a home and more of a small city, a logistical nightmare on an absolutely epic scale. So the story we usually hear paints this picture of a king with legendary power and an insatiable appetite. But what if that's not the real story at all? What if this gigantic harem had nothing to do with romance or desire and everything to do with something way more calculated and way more brutal? Because the truth is, Solomon's harem was actually one of the ancient world's most brilliant and, frankly, ruthless strategies for national survival. This wasn't a collection of lovers, it was a collection of living, breathing political treaties.
So this is the key, right? We have to separate the myth from the reality. The popular image is all about indulgence and luxury. But the reality for Solomon back in the 10th century BCE, it was pure desperation. His entire kingdom was on the brink of being wiped out.
You have to understand the geopolitical pressure cooker he was in. He inherited a brand new kingdom, this little upstart nation sitting right at the crossroads of 3 continents. You've got Egypt, a 2,000-year-old superpower breathing down his neck to the south. And all around him are these rival kingdoms, the Moabites, the Ammonites, just circling like wolves waiting for him to make one wrong move. So when you can't win with brute military force, what do? You turn to diplomacy. And in the ancient world, diplomacy meant one thing: marriage. Every single one of those 700 wives was a political chess piece. Marrying a princess from Moab wasn't about finding love. It was a living, breathing treaty that basically said, hey, Moab, your raiders are going to leave my trade caravans alone now. You just don't go to war with a nation where your own daughter or your sister lives in the palace. But as you can imagine, running this massive diplomatic machine, this system of human insurance policies, well, it came with a price tag that would have bankrupted almost any kingdom on the planet. I mean, just look at the time it took. It took 13 years just to build the palace complex for all these women and their staff. That's almost double the 7 years it took to build his famous temple. That fact alone tells you exactly where the kingdom's priorities and all its money were really going. And the daily operating costs, they were astronomical. The biblical text actually gives us the palace's daily shopping list. We're talking nearly 20,000 pounds of flour, 30 cattle, 100 sheep, every single day. That's just to feed the court. This wasn't a kingdom. It was a massive corporation with an unimaginable overhead. So how in the world did he pay for all this? Well, Solomon was unbelievably rich. He controlled these super lucrative copper mines. He had his own merchant fleet on the Red Sea, trading with Africa and Arabia, and he taxed every single trade caravan that had to pass through his territory. He basically built a financial system that could just, and I mean just, sustain this whole operation. But there was a really dangerous side effect to this whole strategy. While these women were keeping the peace on the outside, on the inside, they turned the palace into a hotbed of international espionage. I mean, think about it. Every one of these women, from the pharaoh's own daughter down to the daughter of some minor tribal chief, she had a divided loyalty. Sure, she was Solomon's wife, but she was also her father's daughter. She was her home country's eyes and ears, living right in the heart of the enemy's kingdom. So you gotta ask, right? When these women sent letters and messengers back home, what was in those messages? Was it recipes and court gossip? Or was it detailed reports on the king's health, his military plans, and the political tensions inside the court? The harem wasn't just a diplomatic hub, it was a palace full of foreign agents. So we've looked at the politics, we've looked at the economics, but this whole system rests on a foundation we almost never talk about: the immense and pretty much forgotten human cost. We talk about the grand strategy and the geopolitical chess game, but what about the actual people who were crushed by it? History treats them like numbers on a spreadsheet, but they were human beings, What was life actually like for them? This quote really just cuts right to the heart of it. These weren't partners, they were assets. Their bodies were the currency used to buy peace. Their future children were the collateral on a political loan. They were trapped in these golden cages, completely stripped of their own identities and their own futures.
Just try to put yourself in one of their shoes. Imagine you're 16 years old. You're told you're being sent away forever to marry a king you have never met, a man who already has hundreds of other wives. You don't speak the language, your only job is to be a political symbol, and you might see your so-called husband maybe once a year if you're lucky. That was the real price of this empire.
And here's the devastating irony. The very system Solomon built to guarantee stability, it had the seeds of its own destruction planted right inside of it. The whole thing was fundamentally unsustainable. And over the decades, the cracks started to get bigger and bigger. The people were groaning under these crushing taxes needed to fund the court's lifestyle. The forced labor gangs created this deep resentment, especially in the northern parts of the kingdom. And seeing all these foreign gods being worshipped on their soil, well, it created huge religious tension. The system that was supposed to create unity was actually tearing the country apart from the inside. The second Solomon died, the whole house of cards just came tumbling down. His son took the throne, and instead of lightening the load, he promised to make things even worse. It only took days. The northern tribes revolted, the kingdom literally ripped in two, and just like that, every single one of those marriage alliances became completely worthless. The system built to prevent war now invited it from every single direction. And that's the ultimate tragic irony of Solomon's grand plan. He built this incredible political structure that was held together entirely by his own force of will and his massive wealth. The moment he was gone, the whole thing imploded, and war became absolutely inevitable. So, in the end, it turns out we've been asking the wrong question this whole time. The amazing part isn't how one man managed 1,000 wives. The real question is, how did 1,000 women survive being managed? How did they find a way to live, to connect, to have some kind of purpose in a system that treated them like property? Their story, the one we'll never know, that's the real story. And it's a silent testament to the true, brutal cost of building an empire.